So Pangaea, about 250 million years ago. Now, this is right before all the dinosaurs and things came about. So it was one big chunk. And at that point, then animals could roam from one continent to another. There wasn't this division of genomes, or there's not these divisions of these barriers put in front of them. They could get from one to the other. Now, there may have been huge crevices and things like this that they could get around, but it was still a point where they could move freely around in the different continents. But as we do this, though, it changes not only the land itself, but the ocean too. It changes the depth of the ocean, how the continents attach to each other. You get a colder and drier climate. The changes in the climate are away from the poles. So we get things more like the Ice Age can happen too at the same time. Changes in the ocean circulations. Instead of going around the islands the way they are now, if there's all one, it has to go around the whole thing. So the islands would change. We're constantly moving the depths of the oceans. You know, at some point, maybe Titanic will be back on top of the land. It could push that right up off there. There's nothing says that it can. You know, look at the United States. Like the Great Salt Lake used to be just one big ocean, right? That's changed. The ground is pushed up, and now it's dry land, and it's just sand and salt. So it would be fun to be able to track it and be able to see the changes over the millions of years, to see the differences. You know, you get to say, oh, I'm going to go back 600 million years ago and see what it was like, and then every 10 million years just kind of bop in and see what it's plotted out. But we can't do that. This is a picture of kind of the Pangaea and how it all kind of moved apart. So these different eras, different times in the history of the Earth had different structures to it, I guess is the biggest way to look at that. Our modern Earth is a lot different than it used to be in primitive times. So allopatric speciation. Remember what that is, where we have different species in different areas. They can now no longer get to each other so that they separate out. The animals in Australia, for instance, we have some fossils in Australia and South America that are same in different continents. They've just moved apart. Now they're different animals. Marsupials are different in Australia than they are here. Snakes, spiders, all of those are just different. But at some point, they were all roaming together. Camels roamed the United States, you know, and moved across. But we always end up with, you know, eventually a mass extinction for some reason. A lot of the animals that were present back in the dinosaur age are gone. I think it'd be great to see a brontosaurus, you know, or a stegosaurus walking around. But our environment wouldn't allow that, right? What kind of environment would be good for a dinosaur to live in?
Warm.
Warm? Probably not Muscatine, Iowa, right? More like the Amazon. Very, very warm, moist, lots of plants so they can survive. But at the same time, you want lots of carbon dioxide. Why would you need a lot of carbon dioxide on Earth?
Closer to what the atmosphere was like back then.
Yeah. So we are kind of going into that situation now. If we keep increasing our carbon dioxide levels, what's that going to do to our Earth? What are some things that could happen if we increase our carbon dioxide levels? New dinosaurs? Well, let's look at short-term and long-term. Okay, so The short term, what's going to do to us in the short term?
A lot of animals will die because they're not used to the atmosphere.
Yep. Animals could die because they're not used to the carbon dioxide atmospheres. What would it do to our plants, though?
They'd get a lot bigger.
Yeah, they love it, right? Plants that love it because more carbon dioxide, the more they can use it, the more accessible it is. They can make more sugars. They grow bigger and taller and stronger. What's it going to do to our atmosphere? You going to make it cooler or warmer? Warmer. Theoretically, it would make it warmer, right? So now we got more carbon dioxide. We're producing more carbon dioxide. For some reason, we're getting more carbon dioxide, and now we're getting a warmer environment, warmer temperature, and that increases the amount of plants. That increases the moisture. That kind of gives us this greenhouse effect. Dinosaurs love that. Why? Imagine how much food a dinosaur ate every day. Tons and tons of it. Where does coal and oil come from? Fossil. Fossil, right? Fossil fuels. That's what they call them, fossil fuels. Why? Those were plants and animals that died, and there's layers and layers and layers, tons and tons, millions of tons of plants were compressed, turned into oil, into coal. Not just little pieces here and there, big veins of this stuff, miles and miles of it. So there had to be lots of plants and lots of animals to make up those reserves of those oils, right? Even though underneath the sand in Saudi Arabia, there's oil underneath there. How did that oil get there? The Saudis put it there? No, I was there long before man got here. It was produced by those biodegradable animals and plants. Ran through the soils, ran down into the crevices, and now it's pooled in those areas. And they go in there and suck them out. But then the next question is, why isn't it running out? Why are we not running out of oil and coal? Have we tapped it all out yet? No.
But we could.
Even when I was back in the 70s, that's dating me now again. Back in the 70s when they had the oil crisis, they kept saying, oh, we're going to run out of oil. We're running out of oil. We're running out of oil. Nope, we found another bunch out here in the ocean. Or no, we found another bunch somewhere else. At some point, can we maintain this usage of oil compared to our supply? Is our demand going to outrank our supply? What's the deal with the big pipeline going up and coming that they're having the problem with? Why do we need a pipeline going into the South Dakota? What's up there? What kind of oil? Shale oil, right? Shale oil, it's the oil stuck inside the shale. It hasn't quite been there long enough to form big pools of oil, but it's kind of in between the layers of the shale. So they use heat to defrag it. They push it into the areas that they can suck it out. And they say there's enough up there that we'll never use it all up, probably, for a long, long time. But we've got to get it out first. So they've been doing these defragging and stuff for years down in Oklahoma. It's causing some main problems down there because they're forcing heat into those areas, and it's causing the ground to create earthquakes. They have more earthquakes in Oklahoma than they've ever had in the past. Sometimes many of them a day, because they're the way they're taking oil out. So anyway, mass extinction, something to look forward to, like a toothache, only a lot bigger. So we've had 5 mass extinctions, and we're number 6. We're the number 6. More than 50% of their species became extinct in these species. Edward Wilson estimates 27,000 of species currently are lost per year. $27,000 species are lost per year. Doesn't that seem like a big number?
We don't even know about most of those species.
That's right. Who cares about those? You know, that's a bug somewhere in Australia or in Tanzania. We lost them, big deal. Why is it such a big deal that we don't lose our species? Do we need just to be us? All we have is just humans. Can we survive on this earth by ourselves?
Our ecosystem needs to be diversified to support itself, pretty much.
How does that work? You're right. How does that work? Why does it have to be diversified?
Each thing does something different. So, like if you don't have
their own niche. So
yeah,
if the niche isn't filled, it's screwed next time.
Yeah, they're either a food source or they're a predator or a prey, right? They have what they do. If you eliminate a bug, maybe that's a food source for a bird, and that bird's a food source for a hawk, and that hawk is a whatever. It just keeps going. So one little itty bitty critter can change not only that, but it can make other ones extinct also because that's their food source, unless they can adapt. So yeah, it's very important that we watch those things. Instead of squishing a bug when we're walking down the road, maybe we walk around it and let that bug survive because it may be a food source for something else that we want in our life. Maybe a food source for your kid or something eventually. Right? Chocolate covered cockroaches or caramelized ants, it's whatever.
Sour cream and crickets.
Is that right? I don't think I've ever had one of those. 22% of all species will be extinct if no action is taken, if we don't start to work with this. Now, what can we do as individuals, as humans? How can we prevent this?
make legislation about overhunting or making like China-made ivory illegal.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
We've almost extinct most of our whales because they hunt them for blubber or for whale oil and things like this, which I think is just, amazing that they can find that many whales that they can harvest. This big ocean. How do you look for them? How do you kill Moby Dick when there's a gazillion miles of ocean around you? But at some point, we're over-harvesting. In order to feed our populations, we have to harvest many things. And by polluting, we're going to be killing a lot more of those substances too. So we had the Permian extinction. This is between the Paleozoic and the Mesozoic era. Occurred in less than 5 million years, and it caused extinction of 96% of the marine animal species. Who cares about marine life? We don't need those anyway. We don't need those stinking dolphins. Right? So, do we really need this type of thing? So, global warming, how would it affect the oceans?
More fresh water than before.
More fresh water, and also it decreases the oxygen levels. Why? Because we have a certain amount of green life in those oceans. If they get too hot, it's not conducive for life, right? So we heat the...
Bleaching the coral and everything else too.
Yep. Yep, we're killing our coral reefs and all that stuff because it gets too warm. They can't form their reefs. Then the little fish can't survive in there. There's no food sources, and then they start to die, and the whole thing just kind of cascades right into dumpster. Right. So yeah, it's very important that we keep our oceans alive. Without our oceans, we don't get enough oxygen. Our oceans produce lots and lots and lots of oxygen for us, much more than the rainforest and anything else. We get a lot of oxygen production from the algae that's there. So all the way from the very small little krill to huge whales, it's a very intricate ecosystem, and it all has to be in the right position. The Cretaceous mass extinction 65.5 million years ago was between the Mesozoic and the Cenozoic. This is where about half of the marine species and many of the animals that live on Earth, including the dinosaurs, bit it at that point, 65 million years ago. I think it's cool to think that a dinosaur can get as big as it was. How did that happen? You know, why aren't our cows and things that size? What happened to that massive monstrosity called a dinosaur? How many millions of years did it take to get from a little itty-bitty dinosaur up to a huge dinosaur the way they are? Mutations. You'd have to have lots of food and a perfect environment for them to survive, with hardly very, very few predators for them to get that big. Right? So, anyway. So, the Chickawawa, I think that's what it's called. Luba. Chickaloob, that's not pronounced properly. I'm not very good at those names. Crashed. They found the crater. They know where it hit, and that's supposedly threw so much stuff up in the air that it caused the mass extinction. And it could happen again. Our lives could change immediately, quickly, within just a matter of days if a meteor started coming at us. So this crater off the coast of Mexico is caused by a meteorite, 65 million years ago. Our current rate is 100 to 1,000 times more than typical. So we are killing things off quicker because of our atmosphere that we're producing, the carbon, the acid rain, their environments that we are. Remember homeostasis? What is homeostasis?
Balance.
A balance, right? We have this certain parameters that we can live in, and animals are the same way. If they get out of their balance, if they get out of their homeostasis, their equilibrium, they die. They're very susceptible to death. So we're changing those equilibriums. We're changing the way that the Earth functions, the way that the temperatures, the food sources, by what we're doing. We don't even realize what we're doing. Imagine how much garbage we're throwing away every day. Every day. And we think, oh, that's cool. We'll just throw it away, put it in a hole somewhere, and we'll just cover it up.
Just burn it.
They used to burn. In Ames, they used to incinerate it. They burn it up and they use it for energy. Then they said, oh no, that pollutes too much because the ash that comes off there is really toxic, so you can't do that anymore. I don't know. Kind of weird, right? We have all this garbage that we're producing, but we can't do anything with it. And the plastic that we're putting out will be here much, much longer than we are alive, as far as humans go. As far as me goes, anyway. Somebody's going to have to come up with a biodegradable container of some sort that can be usable. And that will be a massive thing. Tremendous amount of usage for that. So we are the 6th human-caused extinction. We're just working on it right now. A couple of things. Oh, why did I put this in there? Why are frogs always smiling? Because they eat what bugs them. And why is a baby snake crying? He lost his rattle. Okay, so a couple little things here. Kind of gets you out of this mass extinction, feeling so bad about it. So these, but the problem with mass extinctions is that they're also beneficial. It's kind of weird, but if you kill something, then something else comes in and takes its place. It gives us a new niche for a new organism to expand. Over time, it takes time to do this, but even for humans, if all the humans got wiped out, except for just a few, we'd expand again. We would come back, and our mutations would be different this time than it was before. So we may even look different. We may start in a different area of the Earth and have different traits because of where we were. So sometimes extinction is beneficial in that way, that it creates new and different organisms, but it always sets things back. Kind of resets the whole process of what's going on. So we have what they call adaptive radiation. Our evolution is adapted species from a common ancestor, of course, but if we eliminate a lot of our individuals and we take it back to one ancestor, only one organism lives on Earth again, we go back and we come out with a new environment, new people, new individuals that look different. They will adapt to their new environment differently than the ones that were there before them. So maybe we lost the dinosaurs, but we gained other animals that were more adaptive to the new environment than what theirs was. So instead of being adaptable to a lot of lush, green, warm environment, they adapted to a cooler environment that the dinosaurs couldn't handle. And that made a difference. So mammals were one of those that we went through this adaptive radiation. We have different organisms over the years, like prokaryotes, photosynthetic organisms. Large predators came about to kind of take over so that we didn't have a lot of herbivores. You know, the dinosaurs, you had to have a certain amount of large predators to wipe out some of these organisms, or they would have just overpopulated the earth. If the environment is so good, they just keep reproducing and breeding. You know, dinosaurs were just like any other. They produced a lot of different eggs throughout time. They found clutches of eggs, huge clutches of eggs for dinosaurs. So they may have, 10 to 50 babies at one time, and that could overpopulate the earth fairly well. So we have to look at the how animals, and especially mammals, survived all that process. But it creates a new path, a new tree of life, basically, once you go back to that extinction. So how do we, as scientists, go back and look at this? So we go back to the dinosaurs and there's that extinction, and how do we get past that extinction to know what the previous organisms looked like? That's kind of a good question to ask. How do they know, okay, that we did come from lobefish at some point? Where was the lineage for that? We had 5 extinctions in between there. Maybe there was another divergence in that area that we can look at. That gives us a little bit different process. But here's another tree of life, or taxonomy branch here. That we have the ancestral mammal here. Here's our ancestors, and then it diverges off into the monomeres, which are more like the marsupials type things, with the platypuses and things. Then we have marsupials here that are different, and then we have the other animals, erythrans. These are placental mammals. What's the difference between a placental mammal and like a platypus? Platypuses, do they lay eggs? Yeah, platypuses lay eggs. We don't lay eggs, but we have eggs, right? They always, what's the difference between what came first, the chicken or egg? Did we talk about that yet? Yeah. So we all have eggs all over the place. Platypuses have eggs, but they put those outside of the body. Kangaroos have eggs. They're born. Those babies are housed inside of a pouch, and then we have the other animals that are live birth animals, basically placental. They are attached to the mothers. Whereas a platypus egg is dropped out, they utilize that shell as a protective mechanism. We don't put that on ours, so we have differences. Hawaiian Islands are great for adaptive radiation. Things cropped up, landed on Hawaiian Islands, and then reproduced and grown into that environment that they have. So all these different organisms have come from somewhere else. Those Hawaiian Islands really had no flora or fauna on them at one point. They were just a big pile of lava. Plants came in on the wind or by birds or through the ocean and created this new environment, this new radiation adaptation to those specific environments. So, and by doing that, they've also changed the earth. You know, the plants come in, they send roots down in, they break up the lava, they make more dirt, then other plants can come in. So it's kind of a wears on them. It's just like if right now, if humans left this earth, it wouldn't take long before this place called MCC to be just dust and dirt again. You know, a couple, 100,000 years, you wouldn't even know that this place even existed. It'd all be rotted and rusted and gone. So we have that ability to return the earth back to its kind of a normal state if we leave it alone. So genetics is the key to studying a lot of these differences. Heterophony is the evolutionary change in the rate of time of development and events. So we have to look at the events that occurred on Earth and then kind of look at how the spaces of time in between them. So we can look back and look at how we looked, 10,000 years ago, a million years ago, by finding fossils, by looking at the genetics of those fossils. We may be able to put together a lineage that takes us back to a monkey or a hominid or whatever we will look at. It's definitely to the hominids about 4.4 million years ago. But the processes that we do, by doing this, we have to look at the sizes and shapes and this interim steps, how we've changed over time. Even looking at from a baby to an adult, there are differences or changes in the way that we look. So if you find a baby skull, that's going to look different than an adult skull. So sometimes people get all excited. They say, oh, I got the missing link because look at how small this is. Well, they've actually gotten a child's skull or a child's skeleton instead of an adult. And they think that that's a smaller hominid that created this, what we are, humans. We have parts of some skulls that look differently. We have, here's the chimpanzee's fetus. Here's the adult chimpanzee's face. It looks different. But if you look at the chimpanzees, the babies, they look a lot like us. Then they evolve and change as they go through it. Not evolve, but they change their appearance. Human skulls versus a baby and a human adult skulls are a lot closer in the way they look, but there's still lots of similarities between the chimpanzee and the human as it goes through. So this heterochrony can alter the timing of the reproductive development and non-reproductive organs. So sexually mature species can have different body parts, different looks than the juvenile or the babies. We have to look at how this all works. Pediometamorphosis is the rate of reproductive development that accelerates with the body's development. So going from a baby to an adult, we look a lot different than a baby does. We have different body parts, we have different size of bones, pelvis, different types of things like this. Now this is, and if you look at animals, you even look at the cells, the chicken cells. The chicken cells have a lot of the same characteristics as our cells do during developmental processes. The development of a chicken egg goes through the same stages as a human does, up to a point, and then it starts to diversify, it starts to change inside that egg to make it a chicken versus a human. But in reality, it has basically a lot of the same analogous parts that the chicken does. We have a tail, we have the same type of bone structure mechanisms than they do, so things are a little bit different, but they're the same. So this little fish has gills, and it can change as we go through its life. Those gills will no longer be on that part of the body. It can be absorbed in other places. I think we've got just a little bit left. Does anybody want to take a little break? Let's take a 10-minute break or so, and we'll come back and finish this up. Okay. Yeah, we're not too far off. All right, so let's finish this up. We've only got about, I don't know, 15 slides left, not too much. Basically just talking about how things can change in the genetics, and that in turn alters how the world is looking. So homeotic genes are genes that pretty much tell us where our body parts are going to be. Why do we have arms and legs where we do? But those are determined genetically, and those are the homeotic genes that do so. And the specific ones that do this are HOX genes, HOX genes. These are ones that give us specific location, and if you put those, if those genes arise in or become expressed in another area, you can have a different arm or leg expressed in that spot. You've seen these commercials and stuff where they have a horse or cow with 5 legs instead of 4. Those types of things are vestigial legs. That's just because these genes have been expressed in those areas in the wrong place. There's been a mutation or a stimulation of those HOX genes. You can have certain critters that have, instead of a feeding appendage, you'll have a swimming appendage, or vice versa. They change, and because of the way the HOX genes are being utilized, they're stimulated. 2 duplications of the HOX genes have taken place in our vertebrate lineage. So these form the different vertebrate characteristics in the way that it works. Now, some animals have a pelvis and some don't. So those are different variations in how that they work. If you are a dolphin, for instance, or a whale, you may not need to have a pelvis. All you need is that whip, that movement of the spine, and the flippers to go with it. More of a muscular type of a mechanism than anything else. Hypothetical vertebrae, this is just kind of I put it together. So if you have the first HOX duplication, will give you something that looks more like a fish, and then the next one will come in and it changes it to looks even more like a fish. So it has, some of them have jawless, they're more of an open mouth, but now as we go through, this HOX gene gives this ability for a mouth that has a joint in it, so it can eat. So we really don't know why the Cambrian period was such a very beautiful time where things really diversified, but it could be on the way that these genes were expressed, these morphological forms. I think a lot of this was just because of the environment. We had such a good environment for these organisms that they flourished. They reproduced very quickly, and more reproduction gives you more mutations, more changes, and there could have been some radiation taking place at that time that we weren't aware of. So there could be some external factors coming in to change things too. So one of the things that we have is sometimes we have this situation where we gain or lose appendages. One of these is we have this many-legged crustacean ancestor, and because of these genes that we have that can turn on these different, like a budding membrane, we can have fewer or less legs because of it. So here's an example of Arthemia and Drosophila. Drosophila is a fruit fly, and the Arthemia is basically just a multi-legged little organism. More like a nymph or a larvae in the ocean or down here at Weed Park than the fruit fly. Fruit flies are very primitive, but it's all just a mutation of the HOX gene. Instead of having multi-layered HOX gene in place, it now has blocked it. You only have a certain number of layers. So we go from many layers, many legs to 6 legs. And that's how we get a deformity or a new form of organism. Some of the things just change. We have developmental genes, instead of changing their sequence, they change how often things respond. So 3-spine cichlids have fewer spines than the ones in the ocean. They just have adapted. They've got in the clear water instead of the ocean water, and they express it differently because of the environment they're in. So evolution is not a direct path by any means. It's not an easy thing. It's constantly changing, and we're always messing around with it. As far as humans have done it, other organisms have done it. We've evolved because of the way that the evolution changes us, and always modifying, always changing. Even to the point, a good example of this is color blindness or color vision. Why do we have color vision? What benefit is color vision to us over, like, say, your dog?
Sometimes you can see it's hot or cold. Basically, like hot steel, you're gonna see it's red or orange. Or you can see it being, if you're colorblind, you aren't gonna see the same colors.
Okay. How about looking back at monkeys? What would benefit would being able to see colors? How would they benefit a monkey?
Ripe fruit.
Ripe fruit, right? The better the fruit, the better, the more nutrients it has in it. If you eat a green fruit, you can get sick and die. If you have one that's ripe, you're going to get more nutrients and you're going to survive better. So that's kind of how the evolutionary process of natural selection kind of took place with that. Now, some people have color blindness that we're kind of showing up now, in our society. That's not really beneficial for that type of thing, for food, right? You pick up a nice red tomato, it's not going to look as good to you as it would if you didn't have color blindness. So sometimes natural selection is good that way, and sometimes it just kind of falls short. We don't get that complete transfer of natural selection. Exaptations, these are structures that evolve in one context become co-opt in a different function. So we can use things for one area that's not in use. So extracting a single evolutionary progression from a fossil record can be misleading. You look at one aspect of it, but there can be other organisms that have branched off or come into play in that area before we look at all of them. So we might find this really neat skull of a human buried under MCC someday when they're going to repair the library. It's probably one of the founding fathers they just buried there. But anyway, if we find that, we look at it and say, oh wow, that's kind of different. I've never seen anything like that before. And you look at just that individual and say, this is this missing link, that doesn't give us a good picture of where we're at. You need 10 different organisms that have that same characteristic to make sure that you have that line delineated perfectly, right? If just one little organism that may have mutated, you can go in a really big direction the wrong way. So we want to make sure that that wasn't just a special case and that everything is the same throughout that era or that time frame. Now here's a kind of example of this as we look at the horses. Horses came from very small organisms, and they've bred upward and gotten bigger. So Hydrocantharium is the smallest one, and as you go through the lineage, we go through the different ones. We have the Mesohippus, and then we go up to the Parahippus, and then we split right here. Where's my line here? Oops, back.
Hey Doc.
Yeah.
We put some plants in your office. So.
Okay. So we have a split here, and these are going to a different organism, and they become extinct, Whereas this organism continued on, and now we go up to the Equus, which is our modern day horse. Now, somewhere in this line too, we've taken and reduced the horses down into a smaller organism called a miniature horse. We have Shetland ponies, miniature horses, different horses for different functions, and we've done that. We've actually changed their size or shape, their what they do because of the way that they are situated in our world, what we need them for. So we allow certain things, or we've had certain things evolve over the years that have created a more of a suitable organism for either time or shape. Now, look at the difference in the bones are fairly similar, but there's slight differentiations and slight modifications in what happens. So if we look at the fossil record and we only find these bones, we assume that then this is where this comes from. Instead of actuality, it's gone all the way around this way to form this organism. So we have to have more organisms this way to give us this organism than just one individual or one pathway, right? So we're on an evolutionary trend. We're going to change, things change, characteristics change as time goes on. We're going to adapt, and the appearance of our trend that there's things that are going to take place, but it doesn't always mean that it's going to go in the same direction that we think it's going to go. Here's the timeline for the Earth. Basic timeline starting at 4.6 billion, going all the way down to 25,000 years ago when we had the Neanderthals. They kind of checked out on us. So we're going to eventually here put this all in a timeline. We'll get a nice piece of paper and we'll stretch it out and mark all these things and some special other things that take place in our environment as we go through. So we can see here 1 billion years ago multicellular life started. We'll take another one here. 400 million years ago insects and seeds really took off. 360 amphibians, reptiles 300 million years. 65 million years ago dinosaurs died out. The ones that aren't the birds, right? 2.5 million years ago genus Homo came about, and actually they've gone back now 4.4 million years to a hominid that they're just discovering, they're just coming out with just recently. So who knows where the next step is. But somewhere between 4.4 million and 2.5 million, there's a big spread there. A lot of differentiation and different organisms that they haven't even found a lot of those yet. So we don't know where we're all going to end up or where we came from. But we know that we keep going, the polar bears are going to have a different life than they did before. You know, this is the way it works.